from Marilyn Monroe to Jinx from Arcane. There's there's a, there's a lot to cover there. So um, when you're building, I've noticed that sometimes you'll use a stud and sometimes you'll use a tile. Is that as simple because that color doesn't exist in a tile, or is there another reason that you would do that?
Yeah, this is really a common question that
Okay.
I'm getting, but there are a few reasons. One of it is like you said, but there are a few of them. Stats give a more textured, raised appearance, which looks cool with a side light.
Hello, bricks, chicks, and minifigures. You are listening to AFOLs Welcome, where we talk about all things Lego from the perspective of two adult collectors. We're your co host. I'm Grinch.
And I'm West.
And today we are joined by the very talented Lego Mosaic builder, Firanbricks. But before we get into that exciting interview with him, West, how was your week? Did you build anything?
No, another big goose egg for me, Grinch, on the building scene. I did take a stab at putting together some wooden kind of dividers for a box that I have, a plastic tote designed to carry Lego through our move. And I had thought about this many years ago when we kind of first did our move here to Virginia, but I'm looking at another move. My collection right now is a lot smaller. It's everything we got here during the move that I built, and it fits nicely in one tote. But I wanted to kind of divide it up again. Putting like little dividers in it allows the weight to kind of get dispersed a little bit better, so everything's not like just like Lego set on top of Lego set, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of nice. And it's something I wanted to do with like a little bit more skill and precision than just sort of hacking away at some wood. So I created like a rough draft last weekend, and I don't know if I'm going to take a stab at it this weekend, but it is something that I've started working on. So I'm very excited about that because it should fit very nicely into the box, and I'll share some pictures on our socials when that's all complete. But um, so very excited about that. That was really kind of the only Lego related thing I did this week. I was searching for some early releases at the local Target. Sometimes they can have things a few weeks early, so I was hoping to find some May 1st releases timed for Andor specifically, but no luck on my end. But yeah, how about you, Grinch?
I think there's two things that you just reminded me of. One is the power of personal anecdote, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen like somebody post, "Oh my gosh, early releases, go check your Target." The one post gets seen by thousands of people, but the 10 people that go check their Target are like, "I didn't have any early releases." So that tells you, if anything, it's like a 10%. But everybody is always like, "Oh my god, there were so many early releases at Target," just because they saw one example
Mm-hmm.
of it. It's a nice little social experiment there. But I also, you know, I feel like we kind of talked a little bit about this when we had Tom, the brick architect, on our show last. But there's so much that you do outside of actually building Lego in this hobby, and I think this is a perfect example of like, when your collection gets big enough, or when you've been doing this for long enough, you spend just as much time setting up the display and
Mm-hmm.
organizing pieces and moving stuff around as you actually do building sometimes, right? Like, so it's just, there's a whole other part of this hobby that doesn't actually involve the main point of this hobby, which is like clicking bricks together. So
Yeah.
um, I also partook in a little bit of that this week. I have been really focused on getting the final touches of my display setup.
Okay.
So I've been doing a lot. There's been some smaller pieces I've needed to like put together to get that done. So like that's why I was working on like some Fortnite stuff and stuff like that. I've got like some of my displays behind me over here that I'm just sticking some minifigures on. So I've been really focused on that, and I am gonna be ready here pretty soon to do a display room reveal. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
been,
exciting. And then maybe pack it up, right? So
who knows? Who knows?
so
Probably.
actually that reminds me of a few things, which is one, I'd love to kind of to pick your brain maybe on a future episode about kind of the gain loss of displaying and then moving and stuff like that, right? Because you've now set up your display a few times, 3 if I'm counting, if we include the original location.
Technically 4.
There you go. That's true.
Technically 5 if you count like the original when like the
Yeah.
collection was only this big. But
Fair enough. So you've definitely got some great
probably
lessons
6 by
learned.
the end of the year.
Yeah. So I think that's something for us to discuss. But then I also know that you have over the years actually sold some of your stuff off too. Things that you were like, why did I buy this? Or, when I bought it, I felt like it made sense. So like for me, one of the things that I need to go to my Bricks and minifigures with, local one or at some point, is I have this whole collection of 501st Stormtrooper or Clone Troopers from the battle pack that I just don't have any use for. And then I have a bunch of the last or Rise of Skywalker sets that I thought were really cool. They are really cool, but I don't have any utility for them, right? And so it's like, why keep? I'd rather get like in-store credit and buy things that I want or need, but could use versus things that are just there to be there. You know what I mean? So I think there's a whole avenue too of maybe a discussion about downsizing your collection. That is kind of
we don't
maybe
downsize here. As a Denver Broncos fan, one of the previous owner, Pat Bolin, RIP, it was like famously said, we don't rebuild, we retool. You're not downsizing, you're not rebuilding your collection, you're retooling, you're refocusing it.
Sure, fair enough. Semantics aside, I think
It's
that's
all about
kind
the
of
mental game, brother.
yeah, I suppose. I don't think there's anything unhealthy about downsizing a Lego collection, but
No, there's not.
But some things take you break them apart for pieces, right? But there's certain things where it's like, why do that? Why not keep it together, right? There's no reason for me to break apart the Y-wing from Rise of Skywalker. Like, I can get better in-store credit than I can utility from the pieces. You know what I mean? So
yeah, one thing that those like Lego articles that mention, not Lego articles, but those articles that like Wall Street Journal or whatever that mention Lego is a better investment than gold based off the annual return, they're talking about sealed sets.
Sure.
And if that is your intent, is to buy Lego and resell it later, if you open that thing, just remember that it goes from a unit of 1 in box sealed to a unit of whatever the piece count is, because if you wanted to go and sell that Y-wing, all of a sudden now you got to go find all those pieces, right? Whereas like if you had just at least kept it in a bag off to the side, so it that's where you have to have that kind of like honest reflection of like, what is my am I a mock builder? Like, do I need all these pieces? If I just need one piece, go buy that one piece. You don't need to buy a 700 piece set to open it up to just later be like, that's like $120 set now. Maybe I should go sell it, because you're going to spend time
absolutely
putting that set back together.
Now, if it's in good condition, a used set like that can still retail sometimes even more than what you paid for it new, if it's kind of rare or exclusive enough.
Or old enough, right?
Right. But in your experience too, I think you ended up selling some stuff to Atlanta Brick Co. And I think you got in-store credit from them.
Yeah, and they gave you whatever the current value was in in-store credit, which is why I use them. Because Bricks and Minifigs will do like 50%, or I haven't been to one in a while with that intent, so don't quote me on that. But Atlanta Brick Co. sent me a filled out a prepaid shipping label, and I just put all the stuff I was selling in a box, and they quoted me in advance for it. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's nice too, because generally you'll get more in in-store credit than you will like
Mhm.
cold hard cash, right? And that is just the model, the business model, right? Like the Atlanta Brick Co., the bricks and minifigs, they have to make a profit on the set that you're selling them. So they're not going to give you its inherent value. They're going to give you a fraction of the value because they need to then make something off of them selling it. So certainly something for people who are interested in downsizing or retooling, if you will, to keep in mind. It's not, somebody trying to lowball you. It's just they need to make their own margin as well. So there's some, you're not going to get what you paid for it back necessarily, unless it's really an exclusive or rare set. But I wanted to mention why. So I bought all of those before Rise of Skywalker came out because I bought the Poe Dameron X-Wing, the Y-Wing, and the A-Wing because I was like, well, these are like the definitive versions of these sets. And I really do enjoy the Y-Wing and the A-Wing and the X-Wing for that matter. I will keep the X-Wing, but the rest of them, they are definitive versions of the set, but they were featured in the movie so little that it's almost like you're like, what what was the point of this? And then to be honest, it's a reminder of where I think Star Wars went to in a direction that I was not a huge fan of. Which brings me to a comment I made on our last episode where I shared maybe a bit of a visceral opinion about something that I would.
We got a lot of comments about it. I'll just say
we
that.
definitely got a few, and I will while I will stick to my guns in the spirit and intent of the comment, I will say what I think I really meant to say, right? Was that something like the Clone Wars just isn't for me. It's not a direction of Star Wars I particularly appreciate. I'm on the spectrum of Star Wars fandom, a bigger fan of something like Andor than I am something like the Clone Wars, for example. But
And I am a fan of the Clone Wars, and I'm a fan of Andor.
there you go.
So that's where we help balance each other out.
Yeah.
And provide some. We try not to pile on the take on this show.
Well, and I'm a fan of where it's going, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think the message. I think that there's some execution challenges that I have with it and narrative challenges, but full circle. Andor just released last week, and for our listeners, man, these first 3 episodes. I read a review in the Washington Post about it, and the reviewer had mentioned that this first 3 series was the weakest of the 4 arcs they're doing. So there's 12 episodes this season in 3 episode arcs, and each one kind of takes place in a distinct period of time. So they're almost 4 different movies that we're getting, if you will. And this first series, while allegedly is the weaker of the 4, I still thought it was really well done. I got a real big kick out of it. I'm actually rewatching it this weekend in preparation for next week's release on Tuesday. So I'm very excited. I am in my happy place at the moment with new and/or Star Wars out there. So very excited to see where this series goes.
And I will bite my tongue on The Last of Us because I'm, as a big fan of the game, I'm also a big fan of the show. And I've really grown an appreciation for the show just being slightly different.
Yeah.
Because kind of like the Lord of the Rings, like the book versus the movies, the differences are well done so that it kind of just enhances and makes that experience unique to the other one in a way that I still really appreciate. So that's all I'm going to say on that so that this doesn't turn into a film review podcast. Coming back to the Lego, why don't we head over to some exciting Lego news?
Let's do it.
Exciting Lego news. All right, Wes, do you want to run us through this week's news?
All right. So this week, the news that we kind of saw that we thought was meaningful to speak to was the happy plants are revealed and the red maple bonsai. The Lego Fauna Tiger art set was revealed. We have information on the May the 4th sale. The Minecraft Visual Dictionary was revealed to be released. And we have some Star Wars Celebration reveals to speak to. So, Grinch, what stood out for you?
The tiger. Let's talk about the tiger in the room.
Okay, let's talk about the tiger.
It is really well done.
Yeah.
Very well done. But I'm just curious who's it for, and I've been wrong before because I honestly I thought the same thing about the botanicals, like they just weren't for me, and like that's totally fine. Um, but the tiger, it's like it's something I think we need to do a episode on like how far Legos come with like their piece catalog because this is something they definitely could not have made 10 years ago, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm just like, is it for like a kid playroom, like a parent to build? Is it for somebody to just maybe put in their office? I don't know. I struggle a little bit with this one. I'm sure it's for somebody. It's not for me. It looks phenomenal, right? Like it looks really good. But you know, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it's the start of something, and you know, like the helmet series, and in 10 years this will be the super rare one because nobody bought it, and you know, now we've got the giraffe and the elephant and everything else. But it looks really good. It's a very pretty set. I'm definitely going to enjoy from afar.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, to answer your question. I don't know. I don't know, you know, what the intended audience for this was. These art sets do feel very niche sometimes, right? Which I think is fine. I think it's, to your point, there's probably a market or an audience out there that we're just not aware of. And I do think that's a good point too, right? I think all too often on Lego social media, we see people see things revealed and people are like, well, this is dumb. Like, why is Lego doing this? This isn't what we're asking for. And it's like, you know, you aren't the only audience that Lego is catering to, right? Like the Star Wars fanboy audience is not the only Lego audience out there. And so I think it is important to acknowledge, like, hey, it's not for me, but it's probably for somebody. And we've talked about this with Lego, right? I mean, they've had some ups and downs business wise, but they're pretty adept at once they have something identified, they usually have a market for it to some extent, right? They have their hits and misses, but we also, and we've mentioned this on the show, don't know how many of these they ever produce. So it's almost impossible for us to tell, like, you know, is it, you know, produced in a number so wide that it was intended for wide circulation, or was it produced in a smaller batch for sort of acknowledging the niche audience? It does look extremely realistic and pretty. To your point, they've completely taken this series and have just, the way that they're able to replicate images now with Lego pieces just to that degree is just so impressive. So,
well, and in the retail world, there's things called loss leaders too,
sure,
where it's, you know, it's your rotisserie chicken, not so much anymore, but historically,
yeah,
or stuff like
the
eggs
Costco
and
hot
milk,
dog.
which is why they're, yeah, Costco hot dog is a perfect example. That thing has been $1.50 with the soda for the past, like, I think 20 years. But the idea is something that you maybe take at a loss. So maybe they know this won't sell very well, but it will bring in new people who are not currently buying Lego today, right? I think that was probably the intent of Botanicals, and my guess is that the Botanicals really surprised Lego with their success. They were probably like, "Oh, we're just gonna go after a niche adult market here. This isn't gonna sell anywhere near Star Wars or anything like that, so we don't expect much from it." But you know, at the end of the day, is the juice worth the squeeze? If all the people that are buying this are new to Lego, it is, right?
Oh,
And maybe that's only 100 people. This feels like something that could be similar, right?
yeah. So speaking of which, the story of the Botanicals was wonderful because the designer says in an interview that he was making bonsai trees at his desk and just had him around, like his the work office space in Billund, and other Lego designers would come to him and say, "Hey, can you make me one?" And I think enough people kind of caught on, and they're like, if all of the Lego designers want this, like maybe
Huh.
maybe we could sell this elsewhere. But speaking of which, we got the reveal of that red maple bonsai, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, Rufus the cat. I hope I'm finally pronouncing this correctly. We kind of were poking fun of your comment about our pronunciation in the previous episodes, so I believe that's a little bit closer to correct. There's no Z This is the espresso of 2025, whether it's bonsai or bonsai. So Rufus, let us know if this was correct. But I'm really excited about this particular model. It looks fantastic. The way they're able to layer.
It's pretty.
It is.
It's pretty. It's a pretty set.
It is. I mean, the way the colors with the leaves layer really nicely, and just the size of it is wonderful. I can see that put up next to the original one. The original one was great, but when you put the original one next to this one, oh my gosh, they look. This new one just blows it out of the water. The thing is gorgeous, so that's very exciting.
And then West, I wanted to just jump in real quick because
you had a couple extra
peek behind the curtains here. I was responsible for the notes this episode and totally messed up the news. Also, we had Fortnite reveal, 4 new sets. They look pretty good. The dancing figure art set, and there is a teaser for the long-awaited Sherlock Holmes set, which is interesting because Barnes and Nobles did the teaser. So we'll see. We'll see what all of that means here on the 29th.
Yes,
which is Tuesday, the day after this episode comes out.
Very excited to see that kind of formally revealed, and just I think we're going down some exciting territory there. Grinch, I did want to mention that May the 4th sale real quick.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time I have ever seen 4 times Lego VIP points. I think in recent memory, if not ever. I've seen 3. We've seen 3 before. Have we ever seen 4 times VIP?
Yeah, they've done it. They've done it a few times now.
Yeah.
They did, I think there was like the quote-unquote Lego Celebration where they did the 90th anniversary castle. They did Hogwarts Express and the Black Panther bust.
But that was
one
like 2
Christmas.
or 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, that was a while ago. Every once in a while they'll do it. I mean, maybe a couple times a year, and typically it's on, just like it is here,
yeah.
It's on some larger random sets that maybe they're sitting on a lot of inventory or they're trying to phase out. In this case, it's the Venator and the Rebuild the Galaxy X-Wing for some reason, and TIE Fighter, I was surprised because the Dark Falcon is only 2 times, so maybe that one's not selling as well.
Yeah.
And so and then there was another UCS set I'm blanking on. The X-Wing. So they've done it before. Seldom does it occur though. Typically it's a 2 times, maybe a 3 times, but the 4 times is definitely more rare. But what's interesting too is they're doing straight 20% off the Razor Crest, and I believe only in the US.
Okay.
The UCS one, so there's clearly a difference between double VIP points or quadruple VIP points, which is essentially 20% off.
Right.
And then they're just also doing a straight 20% off. I don't know. I wonder which one works better for them.
Yeah. That, the Razor Crest set is a funny one, right? Because I think a lot of people wanted a UCS Razor Crest after season 1 of The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. And then I got to be honest, Disney, I think, did Lego a little dirty with this set because, and for those of you who are not aware, I will spoil a plot point in season 2, but the thing gets absolutely destroyed, like completely destroyed in an episode. And so the timing of it was very funny because, and I think people have made fun of it and shown like the UCS, Razor Crest, and it's like a bunch of black bricks, like piled on the ground. So it's just kind of an interesting choice there. So I would say maybe not a surprise it's 20% off, but.
Can I counter you for a second?
Because
sure. I applaud Disney for destroying it. Because I think one of the things that's plagued Star Wars for so long, it's always been tied to the toys ever since the very beginning, right? I mean, from like, well, this is the TIE Fighter and this is the TIE Interceptor, and for a while it really worked, right? Of like, well, this is a TIE Bomber, this is very similar, but it's the new ship. We need a new toy for it this year. Mm-hmm. Every new episode had a new ship. I mean, now with like the Resistance versus the Rebellion, it's like, well, this is the First Order TIE fighter, and it has a hyperdrive, but you can't actually notice that because that's just the engine that's in it. But it is a little darker, and it has a little red accent on it. So new toy. And this is the Resistant X-wing. It's blue and white. And this is Pose. It's black and or. Like
Yeah.
it went from like at least like canonically, like, hey, let's create this brand new ship. It's gonna be really, it's gonna serve this purpose. Whereas this is awesome. When they started to just like recolor stuff, that's when I'm like, so I applaud them for going in and just being like, nope, because like the plot armor in Star Wars is real, and
Well,
so
it's it's getting thicker and thicker. That's partly one of my issues with
what do you? Sabine Wren has entered the chat.
but yeah, long term, like it is good, right? But I would actually counter that I think it's not as so. Two things, right? Totally agree with you to some extent that I think Disney destroying the ship in the series is good. I still think Disney did Lego dirty by when Lego's like, we need a new UCS, and Disney's like, what if we did a Mandalorian ship, right? Like the Razor Crest, that would be cool. I think because they're planning. We've mentioned this, right? They're probably planning it 2 to 3 years in advance. So Lego's building this thing, not knowing that in the second season it's about to get just utterly devastated. So
Yeah, but we're still waiting for so many prequel stuff, right? Like,
sure.
did we need a UCS Razor Crest? I know it looks really cool. Did you not? And I know people love the Mandalorian. Don't get me wrong, but like
people call it the Space Honda Element. So I'm with you there. I don't think we even needed it. But I will say, here's my hot take on the Disney comment though, which I agree, plot armor is thick. But like I think they're almost setting you up a little bit by destroying the ship, because they're like, see, we're willing to take like big steps and hardship, and it's like, not really. It was his starship, and it was literally in that season falling apart every episode. So like, you didn't kill off a major character. They literally brought Moff Gideon back like later on. So I think, you know what I mean? Like it's almost a tease. They're like, see, we're willing to take big steps, and you're like, not really at the end of the day.
Here's the step you actually took. Well,
right.
I think with that, let's get our guest on this show. We got him in the metaphorical waiting room. Let's bring him on and let's talk about Lego Mosaics. Today's topic. All right, so as I mentioned up top, today we are joined by a master of mosaics, an artist who can create jaw-dropping portraits, landscapes, pop culture tributes, literally one stud at a time. Whether it's Joel from The Last of Us or a pop music icon, Firanbricks brings the world to life, piece by piece. Welcome, Arthur, to the podcast. We are so excited to have you.
Welcome.
Hi guys. You already said I'm Arthur, known in the internet as Firanbricks in all of the social media channels, but we'll talk about it probably.
Yes, we will. So, Arthur, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your Lego story? How did you become a mosaic master?
It's a little bit too much to say about this master part, but I will say something about my Lego story anyway. So it's a bit of a full circle journey, like many of us. I loved Lego, sorry.
That's okay.
As a kid, but I started. I was out of my dark ages around 2013. So then I'm truly came back as an
Great
adult.
year.
Yeah, adult fan of Lego. The moment that I reignite my passion was discovering actually a channel on YouTube that I mentioned that when we talked last time, it was Sariel's Bricks and Pets
Mm-hmm.
YouTube channel, and he was showcasing the Lego Mindstorms 31313 set. So not the latest one, but one before, and he was talking about its amazing possibilities. Like I saw that people are building machines like a Rubik's cube solver with just one set, and it was like blew my mind. Like what are the possibilities of Lego? And that convinced me to buy my first set as an adult. And over time, I built a collection that now includes nearly every Lego Technic flagship set. Because
Mm-hmm.
I was collecting the Lego Technic, it was my core series of my collection. And yeah, then I started with mosaics 3 years ago, but probably we will talk about it
Oh,
also.
we'll talk about those.
Yeah.
So, do you have is Technic still your favorite theme then, or do you have a favorite theme?
Uh, yeah, it's not technique or
Okay.
Mm.
Lego art, as someone could say, looking on my Instagram. But yes, my favorite theme is definitely a model theme. I always
Ah.
loved it for the extreme level of details it offered, especially compared to other themes at that time. In a way, model team feels like a grandfather of today's icons and
Mm-hmm.
creator
Hmm.
expert series. It really yeah, set the standard for high detailed, realistic builds, which is exactly what I enjoy most about Lego.
Yeah, Model Team is a throwback for sure, huh?
Yeah.
Because that hasn't been around for probably 20 plus years now, right?
Yes, yes.
I was gonna say that is a deep cut. So one that I don't know if many of our listeners are familiar with, but I think you did a good job describing it.
Okay, so maybe I can say something about my favorite set because it's a
Yeah.
set from this
Oh yeah.
series. Yeah, I prepared myself, and it's this 5571 Black Cat, which is also known as a giant truck. It's a set from 1996, and yeah, it was a truly giant set for its age, like 1757 pieces, and its
Mm-hmm.
original price was something around 100 USD back then. uh, but I never got it as a kid. Yeah, I only saw this in a Lego catalog, and I think I bought it around 7 years ago, of course as used, and I renovated it. And it has those super cool details like chrome parts,
Mm-hmm.
like here and here, and uh, like unique details. Like, let me show maybe. I don't know if it will be visible, but there is a coffin machine. It's
Oh
crazy.
yeah.
And yeah, can you imagine that level of details today? Yeah, I think it's a good idea to release big detailed track now. Lego, do you hear me? Yeah.
Well, it's impressive too how much that model specifically still stands up and holds up to today's standards. Right?
Yes.
You could, I think if you had someone who wasn't like familiar with modern Lego and the history of Lego, you could probably put that on like a new box in terms of like box art and kind of be like, hey, here's like the next set coming out. And I think you'd have a lot of people convinced that that was the next like Lego Icons set. So it still holds up extremely well, and like to your point, a lot of details that we are sort of expecting today in Lego, but this was done almost, I hate to say this, but 3 decades ago.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and what a great set too. I know the light cups, the chrome cups on the front are very sought after in like the GBC community. There's a module that uses them to. It's called the ball passer, and it
Mhm.
passes little or cup to cup. Sorry, and it uses them to pass the ball around. So, and I think just the cups now, probably all four of those together in good condition are equivalent in price to what the set retailed for back in the day. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, chrome parts in good shape are
mm-hmm.
pretty expensive right now. Also, there are unique wheels. Uh, they are a little bit similar to the modern ones, but they are slightly bigger, and they are also so expensive to replace them.
Oh, yeah, especially on a truck where guess what?
Yeah,
You
there's a
use
bunch
the
of them.
wheels, and there's six.
Yeah.
All right, Firan. So, before we talk about kind of your more recent work, where can people find your more recent work? Where can people find you?
Yeah, people can find my work mainly through my social media, Firanbricks, where I share my Lego projects, especially mosaics, of course. Uh, I post regularly on Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and sometimes on Facebook, but I'm not posting that much on Facebook, so it's like an orphan site. But yeah, I have that too.
All right. So you mentioned that you started with Technic first, right? But then 3 years ago, you kind of really started this focus on mosaics, which is kind of why you're most well known now, right? So, why mosaics?
Yeah, so I'm building mosaics because it combines my love for Lego, that's
Mm-hmm.
one, with a form of creative expression that really relaxes me. I'm working 9 to 5 in my other job as in logistics, and then I have a 6 years old son, so I'm taking care about him. And after the whole day, I have time for relax. And mosaics are really relaxing me. I was first inspired a few years ago when I saw an exhibition at Galeria Mokotów in Warsaw, where Polish Lego fan groups, so those were the LUG members,
Mm-hmm.
recreated famous paintings as mosaics, pieces like Babie it's called in English Indian Summer, and
Okay.
Stańczyk, something like that. And there were four famous Polish Lego paintings built as mosaics. And back then I didn't have the space, time, and resources to create something like that myself, but the idea stayed for me. A year later, I come back to it, and now I'm building mosaics, and it is right now my passion for almost 3 years, as you said.
And interesting too, because that was kind of a time before Lego was really doing it, right, and really started focusing on the
Uh,
art.
Actually, no. 3 years
Oh
ago
no.
was a time when those sets are starting the
Hmm.
finishing
Hmm.
their life. So I think when I started, the world map set was still in the offer, but it was
Okay.
yeah, it was finished almost a year later.
Okay.
And most of the sets like Iron Man mosaic was already off production, and the Beatles set. So I missed some of those sets from the Lego offer when I started.
So, what inspires your pieces? Because you've done
Mhm.
a lot, and I mean, I have some personal favorites because some of them are very cool, but they're very big. I mean, we just talked about some of the Lego sets. Those are what I would call a Lego mosaic base plate, if you would, if that's their kind of standard mosaic size almost. Yours are 10 times that. So what kind of inspires your the pieces that you choose?
Yeah, a lot of my inspiration comes from the conversations I have with my community. I often ask my followers in my broadcast channel what they want to, well, what they like to see next, and I read all the comments under my videos. Sometimes there are hundreds of them, but I'm noting everything, and if something is really popular and I like idea myself, I'm doing it. And I also find inspiration in classic art and iconic images that I think would look interesting as a Lego mosaic, but because not everything can be done to yeah, look good as a Lego mosaic. Uh, Sometimes, yeah, I'm drawn to colorful, vibrant ideas, and other times I feel like creating something darker or more subdued, depending on my mood. And it's a mix of my interests and the energy I get from the people who follow my work.
Well, you just said too that you said sometimes things don't translate super well, but I think you are making a good argument in your work that a lot of stuff does translate really well, because the energy and the vibrance of color usage that you're able to capture is just really impressive. And I was kind of looking through your socials earlier to just not only, I mean, I'm familiar with your work, but to really kind of look and kind of dive a little bit deeper into it. And I saw the Life on Mars mosaic that you created, and you had mentioned using gold studs, like a ton of gold studs in it. And I hadn't seen the gold didn't pop at first for me, but then kind of in closer inspection, I was like, oh yeah, okay, there is a lot of those on the design
Yes.
itself. And so to see, and I think you'd mentioned kind of restricting your color palette for something like that, right? So just it's really cool to see your process and how you go about it. And truly, I think you take this mosaic work, and as you mentioned, and Lego was doing this too. You take it like one extra step, and I think that's just so cool to see because of all of that life that you're able to capture and include in those pieces.
Yeah, it's all about Lego to create myself something different. Like actually, you should also buy a set and not just put it on the shelf. So you should get it, maybe rebuild it as you like. It's when I was a kid, I had not many Lego sets, but when I saw something in the catalog that I couldn't have because my parents couldn't afford that, I was building that myself with my own bricks. So that's why I think today we should also try to build something myself.
So your creativity clearly has started from a young age. You mentioned you professionally have a job that's sort of maybe not necessarily on the surface associated with creativity. So where does that creativity come from in general? I mean, I don't know many logisticians who are also master brick builders on the side. So, is there some other element of your past where that you kind of got into art or really took an appreciation for it?
Mm, that's a good question because it doesn't have to be connected with daily work, I think. And I know many people that are just selling stuff at shops and after hours are creating awesome stuff or and not maybe not only the paintings but mm, I know in Poland we have one person who is making great podcasts and was working in a supermarket, and it's totally different topic
Mm-hmm.
here and here, so
Hmm.
it doesn't has to be somehow connected. I'm not connected with art. I wasn't finishing like art school or something like that.
Well, you sure have an eye for it. So,
Yeah, your vocation doesn't always have to be your hobby, right? Sometimes
Yes,
opposites attract, right? You can have a very administrative career and you can have a very creative hobby to kind of get that
yes,
creativity out, right?
yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the inspiration for some of your builds. Um, can you tell us a little bit about your process when after you have the idea? What's kind of the next step for you? Is it go to Bricklink and go place an order for 1 million studs, or
Mm, maybe I was doing like that before, but right now I have enough pieces to making anything I want. So right now I'm just starting with build. Yeah, but it was
okay?
my beginning. Yeah, so uh, I was looking for a colorful pieces on Bricklink, actually without no idea up front what would it be, but I was like thinking if I have enough brown bricks to make something, if I have enough nougat pieces to make something, if not, I was ordering, and later it always turns out that there is not enough. So I was repeating this process a few times, but right now I can build anything I want. And about the process, um, yeah, we talked about the ideas. So let's say I have idea already, and sometimes it's only my decision, not only the community. And for example, I made Joel as Pedro Pascal
Hmm.
was, and it was my pick. It wasn't a community pick. And when I learned when will the second season of The Last of Us will start, I
Hmm.
was planning, okay, it's the right time to make it. And I like to build really colorful pieces because my mood right now is like that. I like to create something colorful, but this subject wasn't the right for making a colorful piece because uh, actually this is a post apocalyptic world and it's
Hmm.
not the right thing. So a week after, I built a Marilyn Monroe with over 40 colors because that was my mood on that time. So okay, so let's go back to the process because my mind is floating. Uh, most of the time I draw a rough draft in GIMP to plan
Okay.
the basic layout. I'm splitting it for 40 squares. You said it's Lego Art base plate. And I know on which base plate I would build the eye, mouth, nose, and so on. And it's a lot easier to keep right proportions and size of
Hmm.
each fail's detail. So it's a mm, technique used by some people who
Hmm.
draw things. So it's not something different.
It's
And
like
when I
creating on a
start
grid,
building,
right?
yes, but it's like 40 squares grid. So when
Hmm.
I'm building 40 base plates mosaic, it's a 40 base plates grid. And when I start building, I pay, of course, attention to the colors. Lego offers around 50 colors, so sometimes they have to get yeah, to get creative to achieve the right shading. 50 sounds like enough to make anything, but it's not. And I will tell you later about it why. But if a certain color doesn't exist, like something between white and light bluish gray, there's nothing in between. I use a technique called dithering, where I mix similar colors to create a smooth transition or gradient.
Mm.
The whole process from concept to a finished mosaic usually takes around 25 hours. It's a lot of small decisions, adjustments, patience, and it's a process I really love. So it's not a hard work for me, but 25 hours of relax.
Well, I'm glad you get so much out of it because I think we as a community get so much out of your images that you create. It, like I said, it's just so much fun to see the approach to it and how you do use the shading. And it just, every time you post a new picture, I'm always poring over the details and
Hmm.
seeing the different colors being used in the combinations. And like you mentioned, in that really awesome technique. Has Lego ever come to you and said, "Hey, dude, what color do you need? We could make it next." Because I think that's like when you'd be like the next level, you know, of like,
No. It's never happened. But actually, the Lego is making new colors, and I saw that there will be something like warm tan or something like that.
Yeah,
But
the what they
yeah,
call it, brick yellow or something like that, or
yeah. But it's not
yeah.
yet in round that shape. So I'm waiting for it to include it because it sounds like pretty good additions to portraits.
Well, I believe the like master builders that work for Lego at like Legolands or whatever, they can actually go and request pieces in colors that aren't in
Yes.
circulation. So every once in a while on Bricklink, you'll find like a clear 1x2 jumper, for example, that a master builder had requested, and now there's 100,000 of them in circulation. So it's like $1 a piece, but that
Yeah.
that does exist. So there is. So I think we're over here establishing new goals for you, Arthur, and we apologize for that.
Yeah.
So do you ever do commissions? Because a lot of the work is either inspiration comes from you directly or from the community. But do you ever do a show and they're like, "Hey, we need a mosaic. We're doing Marvel Days or Marvel Celebration. We need a Marvel mosaic." Or does anybody ever pay you to make a mosaic of something specifically?
Uh, Maybe let's split this question to two. Okay, because
Okay.
I'm doing shows and commissions, but it's not. Yeah, maybe let's start with commissions. I've done one special commission, a mosaic for the wedding,
Oh,
of,
cool.
but those were my close friends. So generally, I don't take on commissions uh, for a building. my schedule is pretty full with other projects, so I don't have
Hmm.
time to create custom pieces for others. However, I do offer something unique. I can create personalized project complete with a list of Lego parts and step-by-step instruction, so other can build the mosaic themselves. It's a way to mm, actually to have a personalized mosaic, but I
Hmm.
don't have spare time to build that and ship that. I'm working with Fox TV, and we are making
Okay.
once a month or sometimes 2 times a month a mosaic connected to the new show or TV series from Fox. So maybe we can say it's a kind of commission, but I'm not shipping those mosaics to the television. I'm just making videos.
Okay.
And about shows or exhibitions, maybe it's a different question, but in 2024 I was attending around 15 exhibitions. One
Mm.
was my exclusive monthly exhibition in a local gallery, but I have also the opportunity to participate in around dozen of smaller or bigger exhibitions alongside other AFOLs during conventions and regular exhibitions of my look, because I'm a part of a small local lug from Warsaw, and we are called WAF. Um, so yeah, but those events are not like no one is paying me to do that.
Yeah. I know we're going to Brick World Chicago, so
Oh. Yeah,
we
yeah,
yeah.
it's
There
it's
the
Well, I almost think that you need to, at some point, I say need. You don't need to do anything that I suggested, but I think we need a whole exhibition of your work from, to as complete as possible, like a little museum or gallery just for your stuff, because it's so impressive to see everything that you've produced. I think at some point, a traveling exhibition of Firanbricks is probably in order. Around Europe and the United States, of course, and we can go from there. But
we'll
yeah,
sponsor it.
I'm doing it in Poland. I'm packing my
wow,
car with up to 17 mosaics because
oh
that
Wow.
is
gosh,
my trunk.
yeah,
And I'm going, for example, in June we have a PyrCon. So it's a convention. It's one of the biggest conventions in Europe, and there I would exhibit my works. But there will be a lot more than
Hmm.
just Lego, because it's a convention for Star Wars fans, for Lord of the Rings fans, for anything fantasy fans.
Well, you just talked about Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, two awesome IPs, two of which you have covered. Let's talk a little bit about some of your individual pieces now, because it's like I said, it's from Marilyn Monroe to Jinx from Arcane. There's there's a, there's a lot to cover there. So, um, when you're building, I've noticed that sometimes you'll use a stud and sometimes you'll use a tile. Is that as simple because that color doesn't exist in a tile, or is there another reason that you would do that?
Yeah, this is really a common question that
Okay.
I'm getting, but there are a few reasons. One of it is like you said, but there are a few of them. Stats give a more textured, raised appearance, which looks cool with a side light. So, for
Mm.
example, when mosaics are hanging on a wall, for example, in my living room, they look cool during a golden hour, for example. Also, with artificial lighting, they look different. Tiles, on the other hand, create a smoother surface and are better for areas where you want a cleaner, flatter look. But this is only one reason. The second reason is availability of bricks, as you said. There is no pearl dark gray tile and light nougat plate. So at the end of the day, you don't see much difference when you look at these mosaics with the light from the front, and the possibilities increases significantly because both are round and the color palette increases when you combine these two type of bricks. Also, the one reason is a price. The same colors can cost up to 10 times more in a different type of brick. My favorite color for portraits is a nougat, regular nougat, not medium nougat, and the regular nougat costs around 10 cents for a single piece, and in another type it can be 3 cents. So this is
Right.
a yeah, big difference when you are using, for example, um, 1000 of them in one mosaic.
Right. Right.
It adds up.
Yeah, yes.
So I
So
think
those are the reasons why I am
okay.
using types.
On a similar question, I've noticed that you also will use a white background and a or and I'm sorry, I should say frame, right? Not a background. Um, is there a reason that you'll use a white one or a black one, and are you limited to those two colors? Have you ever ventured? I mean, I've looked through your catalog and portfolio. I think for like over 2 hours preparing for this, but I've only ever seen white and black. Is there a reason for that?
It's yeah. When I was looking on the question, I thought that you meant about the background, and I'm building that different backgrounds than white and black. But if we are talking about the frames, those were the common frames used in the Lego sets.
Hmm.
So there are a lot of those bricks on Bricklink. Also, I have a lot of Lego art sets for materials, around 11 world map sets and 18 Lego art project sets. So it's 2 1 6. So I have a lot of those white frames and black frames. For example, black frames were in the Iron Man mosaic, and
Hmm.
I bought also a lot of the Iron Man mosaics because there were a lot of dark orange pieces, which are actually quite expensive on Bricklink, and it was worth to just buy these sets for this color. And the reason why I'm using those white and black frames, because I have a lot of those bricks, so I'm using it.
It does create a visual similarity between all of your different works too, right? It's almost like your
Hmm.
signature having that white frame around the art. So I think that is kind of a nice touch,
Yeah,
whether
yeah,
intentional or not.
yeah. Also, I like white more because I found that when I'm making a videos, the black is harder to catch in a video with good quality. So white is better. It looks better on the video than when you are making a close-ups. But
Hmm.
also, yeah, I have black ones, so sometimes I'm trying to be creative how to use those black pieces and still make a good video. Yeah.
All right. So, do you have a favorite piece that you've created?
Mm, there's a lot of them that I like, but there is one which was uh, which was one of my first mosaics I made. and I was testing the limits, how much colors I can use, how big it can be, and it's not like the big one are my favorite, but most colorful one is my favorite. It was a girl
Hmm.
with a curly, colorful hair, and I
Oh yeah,
used
the purple hair, right?
yeah. So I have it right here, so I can I can show, uh, and there is around 50 colors there, uh,
Wow.
Wow.
and it was made around 3 years ago, and it's still not disassembled because I'm reusing bricks. I'm taking apart my mosaics to create another one. I have around 20 mosaics built, but I'm picking something. Yeah, this is old. I can take it apart and reuse the bricks, but this one probably won't be taken apart.
So if it gets put in that like do not touch category, then you know it's
Yes,
a
yes,
special project for you, right?
yes,
Because
yes. I have another one which cannot be touched because it's a portrait of my wife, and yeah, she's not allowing me
Yeah.
to taking it apart.
and is that the one with the kind of rainbow hair coming around
Yes,
from?
yes.
Yes, I saw the video of not only you showing that one to your wife, but then the complimentary video of you showing it to the rest of the
Yeah,
community, and it was very fun to see her reaction. So
yeah.
So I know I particularly liked one piece of your. I mean, I've liked a lot. I love all the Lord of the Rings ones, of course. All the arcane ones are really good. Iconic things like Walter White, say my name. But then you've got the cat in a space suit, and that one's awesome.
Yeah,
That one I
yeah,
really enjoyed.
yeah. Um, yeah, actually, I cannot show that, but I was in contact with production of Breaking Bad show, and they are
Uh huh.
building the Walter White one to hang it in their office. But when
oh,
I will get
awesome.
the
Oh, cool.
photos and I will be allowed to publish it, I will show you.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So they saw it and then reached out to you, sort of thing, and were like, "Hey," and you're like, "Oh, that was so like last year, you guys. Sorry, I'm a busy man over here."
Yeah. I won't build it myself, but yeah, they just ordered the pieces. I shared the instructions with them, so they can build it.
And I want to give the listeners, as I'm looking through some of yours here too, um, a perspective on the size of these because we talked about how there's that Lego plate, right, that they use as a measurement. I believe you said yours are 40 total plates typically, or in that range. Legos are 9. So the like Iron Man and the Batman, for example, those are 9 of those plate units. So it's very impressive the size of some of these things, and I always love when it's like you just standing up there and you're turning this giant portrait of a mosaic that's from head to toe tall. It's so big, and it just that scale brings something else to this whole process, doesn't it?
Yeah. The people sometimes commenting in my videos, under my videos. Is he that short? or, or this mosaic is big? Yeah. And this is the same size as the biggest set Lego produced. So world map was the biggest
Okay,
one, and this is the same size.
just portrait versus landscape, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. So I've got one more question for you. Um, what was the hardest piece that you've built, right? Because I know as content creators, it's so often there's that one the people don't always get to see kind of behind the curtain sort of the process. There's certainly been episodes of the podcast that were a lot more strenuous for West and I to put together than others, are just more of a day at the office. So for you, do you have any a fun story about like a specifically difficult piece that instead of taking 25 hours, it took 125 hours to put together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was one. The most difficult was the Lady with an Ermine, a reproduction of painting by Leonardo da Vinci. I had a very, very ambitious plan to make this reproduction as close as the original as possible. And it was double size of mosaic I'm building often, so it was 77 base plates in it, and uh, and I failed. The worst thing was that yeah, I had already built it around 70, 80% was already built,
Mm.
and I gave up because yeah, I would because there was a problem with something in between the white and light bluish gray color, because I wanted it to be as close as original, and
Mm-hmm.
their skin is in tones of gray. So I disassembled the mosaic to zero and started over. The problem was with those colors, and I said also before, if there are no color, I'm trying to use dithering, but when I use dithering, there was strong contrast between pieces on the face, and it wasn't look good. So
Mm.
second time I started, I changed the color scheme to be more natural. Uh, Actually, maybe not that natural, but more yellow than gray. And there I had much greater possibilities of choosing colors. And the second time I was building it, it was satisfying enough to show. But just imagine that I've built at this time 4 times size mosaic, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
building weekly, because I had to build 2 times one, then disassembling it and not showing to anyone, and build that again. So I could consider that as this was the hardest piece I built.
Well, I think it's really something I really admire just from our conversation today is clearly how much of just a pure hobby and enjoyment you get from this, right? Because so often when you get kind of cornered into maybe a little bit of a niche part of the community, it can maybe feel like, oh, I've got to go make another mosaic to post on Instagram. But I think this is clearly not the case here. This is something that you enjoy, right? And that you spend a ton of time doing because you enjoy doing it, right? And you enjoy sharing that product with other people, which is super authentic. And I think just something that is a cornerstone pillar of this, what makes the Lego community great. So I definitely applaud you for that. And also not being afraid to be like, yeah, this one just wasn't coming together. So I got 80% of the way there, and I just moved on in my life because that's ultimately why we're here, is to enjoy it, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's why I'm doing it for 3 years now, and I'm not even bored. So I will do that. I will do more for sure. And there are, as you said before, there is so much to cover. There are endless
Hmm.
ideas to be covered. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking at one of Mona Lisa on with the Starry Night in as a backdrop, and and I think there's a couple other famous photos there, paintings there too. So
Yeah.
there's get to the collab and the fusion here. Wes, did you have any more questions for Arthur before we let him go about his day?
I just think it's really awesome to see how you approach the subject, how you do so in a very healthy and sustainable way, right? Sustainable in this case isn't something that you can continue to do over and over again. And I think I think you're a really good role model for the AFOL community and anybody who's looking to get into the hobby, especially in this digital age. And then, like I said, it means that we get more mosaics in the future, which is, I think, an amazing thing because it's always wonderful to see your work. I know you've mentioned some of the stuff you're working on. Is there anything else that you're working on that you feel like you can share at the moment, or is everything kind of, you don't want to share it until it's ready?
Actually, it's not like that. I've done anything for next week, so it will be even I don't even have an idea. Maybe I have one, but I didn't start it yet. I think I can build Joe Goldberg from You to TV series because it started the last season. It just started on Netflix, I
Mm-hmm.
think, and it was a really common request from my community. But I was waiting. Let's wait for the final season. That would be the best moment to build that. So maybe next week, actually this week, I will come with Joe Goldberg if I will have enough time to build it.
My wife will be very excited about that one.
Yeah, and maybe I can show you because I'm preparing
Mm-hmm.
something for a upcoming Lego Dreams campaign, and it's it's my kid's dream.
Oh,
It's a toaster monster with spaghetti tentacles, but it will be enhanced with Lego Dreams sets pieces. It's not finished yet, and it will be
oh, cool.
posted probably in 1 or 2 months.
That reminds me of the Brave Little Toaster, but like the Nightmare
Nightmarish.
Edition.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the Brave Little Toaster ever crossed borders between U.S. and Europe.
I don't know.
So I do have a final question, and I apologize because I know we're kind of at the end of our time, and we appreciate all the time you've given us to this point. Um, do you feel a special kinship with the Lego Art series in that you are kind of at the moment pacing, if not outpacing, Lego in some of the stuff that you are doing? So when you see Lego release new artworks, in that Lego Art
Mhm.
kind of catalog, does that feel kind of like you are leading the way on that front, or do you feel like like it's just like a maybe a feeling of camaraderie with Lego as you guys are both exploring this avenue
Mhm.
together in some
Yeah.
sense?
So I'm not feeling that I'm competing or doing. Yeah, I'm making a lead with Lego, making a Lego Art series because we are doing different things. I think market chooses different sets, so that's why Lego is making those new sets differently. Like
Mm-hmm.
there will be this new set with dancing figures, really cool. For me, it's really
Mm-hmm.
cool. I'm not doing something like that, but I like this new set. And the sunflowers sets, it was really great. I also really like it. I want to do that the same, but I like the Lego set. So it's for me, it's also the Lego art line is pretty creative and nice. Maybe not every piece, but the cases are like that. The sets are great too.
Well, I think your work by and large has proven to Lego that not only is there an interest, but probably a market in this series more so than I think anything else has. So,
Wait, I've got one more off the cuff question for you. I think we need to get you a commission build here for the AFOLs Welcome logo or something like that. You DM me your price on Instagram and I'll,
Yeah.
I'll Venmo you.
Not a problem, not a problem.
Well, thank you.
I see that there are small captions in this logo, so and they are not in the straight lines, so it will be a challenge. But uh, in the correct size, in the correct dimension, everything is possible.
I
absolutely.
I'm in sales, and I think you have a future in sales, my friend, because you're right there. Oh, if we do it this big, however,
Everything is possible, just a matter
I,
of dimension.
th- there you go. I love it. Well,
Never
thank
say no to
you.
the customer, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time and coordinating a time between Europe and North America. So we've enjoyed learning more about you as a builder, about some of your pieces as well. And I know West and I could probably sit here and talk with you for another 3 hours. So we won't do that to you, and we won't do that to the listener. But do you have any final parting thoughts before West and I head over to our next section?
Yeah, actually, I hope that someone who will listen our interview will get inspired and start to work more creative with Lego. Like not only put sets on a shelf. Like I have a lot of sets on my shelf, but but it's
Mm-hmm.
also something you need to take and rebuild and bring up something yours. And it was nice to meet you guys, and I'm waiting to hear our interview in AFOLs Welcome program.
Well,
Awesome.
thank you so
Well, thank
much.
you. It was great to have you on. Brick mail. All right, so big thank you to Arthur or Firanbricks for joining us. Super appreciate you taking the time to give us a peek behind the curtain for your beautiful mosaics. I know I always look forward to the big turn reveal at the end after seeing them getting built. So with that, West, I think we have some brick mail today.
Yeah. So our first, the brick mail that we have this week that we're going to share comes from Bob. And he writes, Grinch and West, wow, what an outstanding podcast. I'm a new old listener. Just found the podcast a few weeks ago and have listened to most of the episodes. Observations, the audio has dramatically improved. So much better today than the early shows. The satire over the Bluey sets was hysterical. Keep that up. It's obvious that you guys not only do your research for the episodes, but that you also have a tremendous amount of history with this product. I am a 65-year-old male with a very long dark period. I played with Legos when I was a kid in the 60s, along with Lincoln Logs and Tinker Toys. We definitely did too. The product is so much more different today. I'm currently living overseas, and this hobby has really exploded for me over the past couple of years. I can't wait to retire and build the 150 sets I have today. Wow, talk about a backlog. I wanted to bring up the playability features. I think it's neat when there are movable features in the sets, but I think that the real playability feature is building the sets themselves. It's the real journey is the friends we made along the
That's right.
The endurance is a perfect example. There are no real movement features, but what a perfect set. I recognize that we all love something different about the Lego sets Lego produces. Lots more thoughts about the hobby from somebody that has the funding to buy as much as I want, but don't. I have sets that I have fallen in love with and get them, and others I can look at, as you say, from a distance. Have you thought about showing various bricks when you talk about them on the video side versus podcast? FYI, I listen to you on the Apple Podcast, but have watched a few videos to see if they are very different. Keep up the great work, Bob.
You know, I love the comment about the audio improving because it's, as a primarily audio medium, we really want that to be a focus. So I'm, it's one thing when you do something and you notice it, but it's also, it means a lot when somebody else externally has been like, hey guys, I've noticed this, and like, thanks. But yeah, I think along the same line, like with the thought about, showing stuff on the podcast, like a brick that we're talking about or something, we've thought about that. And it's, I mean, look, we're always exploring and appreciate the feedback, to be quite frank, on different ways to kind of like keep the video engaging versus the show. One thing that we wanted to make sure that we didn't do is just start talking to stuff instead of talking about that stuff. And I what I mean by that is like, well, West, you see the brick that I'm holding, like, this piece is so cool because look at how it connects. Like, from an audio perspective, that's not the goal of the podcast. We try to intentionally be very descriptive if we're describing a certain feature of a set, if we're describing a certain piece. But I think there's room on specific shows to maybe do a little bit more of that.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I know a lot of people that like listen to podcasts on YouTube, or even videos on YouTube, will listen to them as if it's a podcast. So like myself, for example, I'll be doing the dishes and then I might glance over if they mention something that they're holding, right? So that appreciate the feedback, something that we're kind of always exploring.
Yeah. And we've done that a little bit with some of the builds and stuff, but that we've talked to. Sometimes we just don't have the set to physically in hand to be able to speak to it, but other times we definitely do, and it's certainly something we could explore in those moments. But as Grinch mentioned, right, it's hard to. There's a very fine line you have to walk when you're describing something. I just wanted to mention I also really appreciate the sound piece. Grinch and I, when we started this podcast, we did not have podcasting experience, and so we were starting and using like our Apple headphones to record the first few episodes, or just sort of our raw computer, microphones to pick stuff up, and have learned along the way to make this better. And so certainly we appreciate it, because we had a few comments about that of people calling that out, and providing some very constructive feedback about that, and have taken actions since then to improve that quality. So we really appreciate that you've noticed it, and that it is better, or that you believe it's better, which we hope objectively it is. But anyways, yeah, love to hear more kind of about your points. I will finally, kind of on your take about playability features, mention that I think you're absolutely right. And that was something that Grinch called out on the Endurance himself, of how building sideways was such an interesting building process from a Lego perspective, where I believe they used the modified 1x2s with studs on the sides, right? And on both sides, though, it's kind of like a central spine to the ship, and then they're building out sideways from there.
The center of it is like one brick wide down the whole center, and then you build out sideways from that.
Which is almost how ships are made anyway. So it's kind of a really interesting connection of how like the art of Lego is almost mimicking reality to some extent, right? Because they always have that one sort of piece right down the center of the ship, to some extent.
Yeah, and when you build it, you put together a temporary structure that's in tan, probably to like contrast the ship, but tan feels like wood. And so I literally felt like I was building on dry dock, because you've got the ship on this stand temporarily as you're adding pieces. And I was like, I don't know if this was the intent. I don't always read the little tidbits in the instructions that might be there or something, but it really does feel like you're building it on dry dock, because otherwise you'd have a really hard time balancing it, because it's not flat. And that was, I think I posted a picture on our Instagram about that.
I have the Concorde in the box still, and it's one that I'm very excited to get to, because they do something very similar, where they have orange pieces that are used to hold things together sort of temporarily as like shims, or things to hold keep things level as you're assembling it. And you're right. It feels like the scaffolding that is existing when you watch videos like of, for example, large airplanes getting assembled on an assembly line, and you have cranes holding up the wings, and the fuselage is held by like these moving trucks that are taking it down the assembly line, and it all kind of comes together in like that one glorious moment, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's now an airplane. So to the point about dry dock, where I live in Virginia, I live next to the shipyards here in Southern Virginia, and so literally there are dry docks just down the road from where I live, and you can go and see boats and ships being built in real time, and that is exactly what that process looks like. And it's incredible to see these monstrous boats being built just next door, piece by piece, much like how Legos are assembled. So I think that's a really fun point, and maybe where that playability feature is for the adults, right? Like you said, is that experience. So certainly something, a very enjoyable build experience. We call that out on the podcast. So maybe that's something we should explore more. Maybe we do a whole episode on like what's been our favorite building experiences. That would be an interesting topic.
Yeah. Always looking for episode topics. So thank you. All right. That is a wrap of another episode of AFOLs Welcome. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you are listening to the show. If you'd like to write the podcast, please email us at afolswelcome@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at AFOLs Welcome. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.